Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to walk you how to stay motivated and follow through on building real coding projects from scratch. If you ever stared at your screen for hours wondering what to build, or you started building something only to abandon it halfway through, you're definitely not alone. We'll break down what helped me go from just an idea to a working security tool with real world value. Plus we'll show you how to use tools like Wazuh and C++ to actually build it and test it. One of the first and most important steps of starting any project is figuring out what to build. For me, this inspiration came while studying for the CompTIA security certification and learning how tools like Wazuh works, especially how they can track SSH logs and system events. That got me thinking, how could you build your own secure authentication system that follows NSAT password guidelines, modern logging, and even forward alerts to my Wazuh server? The main idea here is that you start with something that's simple and that's like within your abilities or knowledge. So in the video, I'll walk you through the mindset, the process, and the tools used, from brainstorming and planning the architecture to coding. And at the end of this video, I'll show you that the Wazuh server is picking up and generating alerts in real time. Even though the OpenSearch dashboard does not work, due to the manual install not being up to date the actual work, we'll see the alarm logs being triggered by custom logs and our rules that we create. Before jumping into any projects, it's important to step back and ask the question, what are my current goals? How is this project going to help me reach them? For me, the goal was pretty clear because I wanted to learn cybersecurity and build a project that I can showcase on my resume. This project gave me direction and a reason to follow through, which is very important. For others, your goals might be just to get better at coding, maybe learning to use arrays such as hash maps, input-output files in a real project. And for some others, you might dream of building something big, a startup idea tools that other people can use, and that's great too, but you got to start somewhere. The main idea here is that you're starting small, focusing on small projects. And the reason you want to do this is because it's the best way to build your skills, grow confidence, and actually make something that you can be proud of, even if it's just a command line tool to start at. Now that you've actually picked the project idea that aligns with your goals, it's time to talk about how to actually stick with it. For a lot of people, they lose momentum before they even start, but it's really the act of committing that builds this momentum and motivation. One way I stayed focused was by borrowing ideas from the Agile development, specifically the idea of user stories. A user story is a simple description of your project from the perspective of a user. You're not diving into the internal logic or data structures yet. You're just setting the scope and defining what success should look like. And don't worry, these user stories aren't set in stone. You can adjust them as you go to better fit your goals. Let me show you the user story I wrote when starting this authentication system project. As you can see, it was inspired by the NIST SP863 digital guidelines, which gives the project some real-world direction. We made sure to include essential goals like secure password hashing, file logging, and forwarding alerts to Wazuh. Now, I didn't implement everything from the standard. For example, multi-factor authentication was out of scope, since integrating something like SMS codes is something you have factor is a bit beyond what I know and do right now, and that's okay. And I also use a user story as a working doc where I added notes about the data structures I was using, things I learned about Wazuh rules, and the ideas for improvement. It became both a blueprint and a scratchpad that helps me stay organized and keep learning as I went. Now we've covered user stories, let's move on to the second concept I borrowed from Agile: product backlogs. Product backlogs are essentially a detailed, organized list of all your product's needs. Features improvements, bug fixes, and even research tasks. It helps you break down high-level ideas into actionable steps. In a team setting, product backlogs are incredibly useful for dividing tasks, assigning responsibilities. But even when you're working solo, they've proven to be powerful. For me, product backlogs gave me a structure to the project. It helped me take ownership of each step and made it easier to stay motivated. Because of this, I saw exactly what I needed to do next, and it gave me a way to track my progress and hold myself accountable along the way. One way to think of it, product backlogs are like a map. You know your starting points and where your end goals are, but product backlogs help you draw the line between them, one step at a time as you go through the process. Now let's take a look at the product backlog so I can show you what it looked like and how I used it. As you can see here, we've created columns for each part of the user story. The ID, the type of the user, what they can do, so that they can, the goal or the benefit. The value, which means how much value did the features add, and the acceptance criteria. Where do they go into more detail, and what does success look like for that feature? Note that we left the priority column blank for now. In a team setting, this would help determine what gets built first. The status column shows how far along each feature is, whether it started, in progress, or is done. This is really helpful because in teams, you don't want to be working on something that's already been finished. In the backlog, I've included technical notes such as what the user needs to be able to do, the data structures required, and how each feature ties back to their core goal, like enforcing NIST password policies and generating logs for auditing and monitoring. Now if you've been noticing the flowcharts and diagrams I've shown in the video, what we're really doing is designing the architecture of our project. My method for keeping the project moving is to start with a clear design that aligns with our goals. This is similar to the waterfall style approach where we plan out the structure before jumping into implementation. But here's a caveat. If you're working with something new, like a data structure you've never used before, such as a Bloom filter or an unordered hash map, don't try to design around it blindly. Instead, I recommend implementing small standalone versions of the feature first. Just write quick test programs to explore how it works, how to understand its syntax, and its behavior. Once you're comfortable with these data structures, you can go back to incorporate your understanding into the architecture. After the overall design is done, now that we can begin the full implementation. And here's the second key part to the process you'll encounter. After overall after the overall coding of the project's done, that's when we'll begin coding the full implementation. And here's the second key part of the process. You'll encounter bugs. Things like this we didn't anticipate in the design. It's totally normal. Use your architecture as a design to help locate and fix these issues, and as you do so, you'll update your architecture to reflect what you learned. Think of it as a living blueprint, just flexible enough to adapt and evolve your projects along with your skills. Now we've talked about how architecture evolves, let me show you how mine changed throughout the project. Here's mine how it looked like from the later half through development, and here's my final version once all the key features were in place. For the Wazuh part of the project, I created a custom rule to trigger alerts based off of my program's log format. Since I used structured JSON logs, I didn't need to write decoders. Wazuh already knows how to handle JSON formatted. That saved me tons of time of figuring out how to plug it into my system. And lastly, before our live demo, we're forwarding the Wazuh logs to the Wazuh server. This is what's gonna be to trigger our alert rules we just written previously. And here's our final demo. We'll trigger a few login events by typing our username James1234 and an incorrect random password, and we'll see how they get logged, forwarded, and how it's picked up by the Wazuh server in real time. And you can see from here, a log of our alert has been created, and it includes the ID of our role, if it was successful or was a failure. It includes the username, the source IP address, which is important, and it includes the timestamp. These type of log files are really great for auditing and getting an insight of what's happening on your systems. And so that's everything for today. If you let me know in the comments what you're building, or if you want a deeper dive into any part of the system. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this video helped you today.